Hello, Patrick.
Hey,
How's it going today?
excellent. Am
If
I getting am I getting double echo?
oh,
I hear the music. I hear the
you
music.
might have opened the stream in another in another window. It's a classic. So for anyone who doesn't know, Patrick Jones, this incredible talented artist who's next to me, has a brand new
Oh,
course out on Proko right now. And so we wanted to get together, kind of tell you guys about that course that we've got coming. Oh, that's out. Uh, and kind of give you guys a little bit of the rundown of why it's as good of a course as it is, besides the part where Patrick's teaching it. And some of the things that you guys will learn and get to know and apply to your own work from that. So I'm joined by, again, Patrick Jones himself. That's his social handle here. If you guys need to go find him somewhere, this is me. If you need to find me somewhere, and this is where you can find that course. But you'll also be able to click the link in the chat here, in the description, and in any numerous places where you guys will be seeing this video. Patrick, what are we going to show them today?
I don't know, Stephen. Everything's going crazy. I mean, I've got a different desktop 2 open. Let me get rid of that.
Did you sort out your echo?
I've sorted out the echo, but I'm now in a different desktop. Let me see if I can throw desktop 2 into desktop 1. Good Lord, how does it always happen? It just always happens.
If you want to remove this one, that screen share, you might be able to switch it over.
I can't believe I've worked it out. I can't believe I've worked it out. I did it all by my lonesome. I was relying on learned helplessness, which is my usual trope. I said, I don't know how to do this, and I just drop my whole spine like that. And the student comes and helps me. I didn't have it.
If a student, if they were in a situation where the student didn't know how to do something, though, you'd have them covered because
I've got them covered with the drawings, all that stuff. But when it comes to the tech, I shouldn't attend to it. I just use the learned helplessness, and then I can relax.
That's fair.
Smoke my pipe, put my feet up on the professor's desk, let the student come and sort it out. Those days are over.
So for anyone who doesn't know anything about Patrick, we've got a bunch of videos with Patrick demonstrating the fantastic fantasy art style that he has, that I think a lot of people kind of wish that they had, that they could be able to emulate and do themselves. Luckily, you're really good at this, and you decided to teach them how. With how many steps? I think it was 17 potions.
17 potions.
Wizardry.
Yes, and 3 free trinkets. 3 free just for the thank you. That's what
to add to their inventory.
Yeah, and they're fireside chats, I call them, because I like that sort of idea Walt Disney comes in. Because when I was a kid, Walt Disney would used to come on television before they would show a cartoon, and I just loved it. So I did that. I emulated that. In the memory of Walt, I do a little fireside chat and these trinkets just to introduce everyone to the course. So, and then we get into the course, of course. Of course.
Of course. So for anyone who doesn't know, this course has a really hard theme. So this one is called Fantasy Figure Drawing Wizardry.
Yeah.
And so across this one, there are 17 potions and those fireside chats. Those are the save points. If you guys were in video games, you sit down at the fire and you save, you rest. But today we're going to be going over the exact thing that you were talking about, was doing some draw overs.
Yes.
To show structural gesture.
Structural gesture.
Yeah. So
it's funny when I first said to Stan, we were doing. Stan says, "Do you want to draw?" I said, "Sure." I thought we were going to draw together, and he just meant me. And, he says, "What are you going to do?" And I says, "Gestural structure." And he said to me, "What's that?" I says, "Well, it's structure that's gestural." He says, "Isn't that just structure and gesture?" I says, "No, Stan, it's gestural structure." And his eyes lit up and he says, "Yes, gestural structure."
I get it now.
It was two magicians concocting a potion together.
The 18th potion.
Yeah, the 18th one, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's massively different than approaching any of those things by itself.
Yes, I think so too. I think that they should never be separated. Even though they are, you'll do the structure and you'll do the gesture, but you should be thinking of all of it at the same time. It should be a holistic world of both. And today, yes, what I'll do is I'll show the wizardry methods and how I apply them to my paintings, for instance.
Okay.
Because when you get into painting, this course is all about starts. It's all about how do we create mastery through mileage. And the way to do that is not to worry about render. So most of these drawings are 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. And they get into a 15-minute stage near the potion 17. And then we start to get close to render. And then we go, this is the time to get into fantasy female figures. So we talked about it last time. I'm doing this course in reverse because there are meticulously minded students that want to know when to start at the start, where I don't mind jumping in at the deep end. So this was to just address that bridge that was left unbuilt. So this is the beginning for anyone that's an apprentice and wants to be a sorcerer. This is the first step. And I take it right through to the point where I think you're ready now to go and start rendering. So it's for that. It's to really understand. I don't like to think of it as foundation because it's not that at all. It's how to draw stress-free. That's what it is. But it is a foundational idea. It's basically, this will be what's underneath what you want to put on top of it. And whatever you put on top is going to be magnificent because you've done it without any fear of failure. I guess you call it Don't Fear Failure. It could be a million different titles for this course. But the idea behind it is, let's stop fear in drawing. It's meant to be fun.
Yeah,
so that's the idea of it. So yeah,
like I said, just for any of you guys who are here live in this chat, you guys can ask questions in the chat. We'll kind of dole those out to Patrick as he goes through things. And this will be available afterwards for you guys to watch and rewatch 1 million times. Don't you worry. I'm gonna bring up the art screens.
Okay. Now I love questions, so don't fear anything really. Just ask any questions at all.
I have one question for you, Patrick.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Will you hit that little hide button down on the bottom of your screen?
Hide? I was frightened of that in case everyone disappeared. I'm going to hide it now. That's safe to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do it. I've done it.
Okay, we've already answered one question. Thank you so much.
Okay, and we're still here.
Yeah, perfect.
I was scared of that. All right. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just have a quick look in at the course. So the course begins at the very, very beginning. They're potions. And each potion, if you can imagine, is a dash of something to get you into that world of magical drawing. So they come in potion 1, 2, 3. Now the way everything's a trick. When I recorded these in Final Cut, they leave the original title on it. So I'm looking for potion 1 and I can't see it. So let me see if I can work it out from these screenshots.
I believe in you, Patrick.
Oh, thanks. You can see how much I believe in it. I don't know if I'm going to find that potion.
If you can't believe in you, believe in me that believes in you.
Oh, I believe in my drawing ability. Finding a potion, that's a different story. Let me go in here. It'll reopen it. Okay. Oh, it was that one. So it begins there. That's the thing. This takes you from the very, very beginning. Here's me with my Uncle Walt Disney idea of meeting everyone before that hour. So everything's a midnight hour. It's all, you've had your fireside chat with me. Now let's get into the drawing, and I'll present the drawing segment, the potion, before we start. And then we get into it. And so if you want to be that, if you're in the mind, where do we go to the very, very start? Then potion 1 will take you through all those materials. And that's why questions are good, because it helps me to design the next course and the next course. So here, I take you through everything. The materials I use, how I use them, even how I stretch the paper, the pencils, how to hold the pencil, all of that stuff, it's there. I won't bore anyone with it now, but that's potion 1. The materials, and we go through that quite sprightly because, of course, you can rewind it. And what I like more than anything, Stephen, is when an instructor stuffs up, whether intentionally or not, like this lead's going to break in a second. Now,
they're seeing how the sausage gets made.
Exactly. So you can see where it's going. So there's a lot of slick videos out there where nothing goes wrong. And I think when things go wrong, you really need to know how to do the next thing. And so I show myself breaking this lead to show you how to fix a broken lead, for instance, things like that. So basically take you right through it. And the art of sharpening a pencil has been almost lost. almost practically. And that looks quite dangerous, but you can see with my finger there that I can never actually cut my finger. It's impossible. It's because it's behind the pencil.
Yeah.
So things like that, that's the stuff that if I'm in a live class, people have to really gather around very close to see what's going on. When you've got this 4K action going on, it's you can't miss it. And look how nice we can get a pencil lead. And answers questions about how long should a pencil lead be. Like with Jeff Watts, his pencil lines are so macho. His pencil lengths are like that.
Got like a whole dagger down there.
Oh man, I if we pulled out pencils, I'd just deflate. But for me, that's the perfect length of a pencil right there. So things like that. If you want to draw like me and get the lines like me, that's what I do. I warm it all up, get going, and off we go. Now there's structure. So it sounds like a lot of times that I'm demonizing structure. It's absolutely essential. It's absolutely essential. But my whole ethos is gesture. And I want to get that structural idea in my subconscious so that I can draw gesturally. So that's the idea. That becomes a subconscious thing. So if we do it step by step, these are the things. It's filled with mnemonics. It's filled with strange memory clues, like this little skydiver guy is perfect for hand lengths, a hand length for the collarbone, sternum, and down to the 10th rib from the bottom of the sternum. These are hand lengths. But
I like this guy.
You know what I mean? He's a laugh, isn't he? And you can spin him around, which I do a lot. And when you turn him around, you can see that a 3/4, you can start to see the egg is becoming this skydiver on an egg. And so now we're not worried about rib cages. We're looking at something that's so subconscious that it's an easy call. If I just draw that little guy on any torso, I can just fill that out. And then the bottom of the egg becomes your upper abdominal end. These are very tricky things to see on flesh. Very, very tricky. But if you just throw them straight on, I'll do it right now. Organically. So if you throw them on, let me find a better example of that. Let's see her. Let's have a look at her.
I think having like some shortcuts, some things that remove the mental math from you.
Yeah.
It's really handy.
It really is. And for me, it's essential now. So when it comes to painting, the whole process just slows to a crawl. And that's the time when everything stiffens up. So you got to be so mindful that if you take these skills and bring them into paint, that you've got to be able to draw with paint so that you can change things on the fly, which I do all the time. So I'm always working within the parameters. So if I say the parameter of what we've just seen there, first of all, let's look at Mr. T and Mrs. V. This is essential for my course. So I'm always
Mr. T being the one that you just showed.
Yeah. So Mr. T is up here. Oh, yeah, well, he's part of that. So Mr. T is this. So I take it through the navel. There's the main thing. So Mr. T are the clavicles, and I find the navel, and I go down to Mrs. V, like this. Male or female, it's just a crutch, right? So Mr. T and Mrs. V have been established. Now, that tells me now that the little skydiver is in here. Now, I'm looking up at this figure. So the little skydiver is a little bit more shallow, but he's there. And right away, by having that Mr. T and Mrs. V, tells me that we have more on this side than we have on that side. So now I've established that we have a 3/4 view looking from this left hand or right hand side to the left, because Mr. T has established that the little skydiver guy, his arm on this side is shorter than this side. And that tells us that, because it's very easy to straighten that figure up and put it equal, make it a symmetrical size. So now I have a tube that does this and that, and you can really clearly see it now. And so we have a hand length here, like that. That's just established one hand length side here. And we can take that idea down to here. Let's just go just between the breasts before the finish, about here. And you can see that those hand lengths are starting to look right. And there's the little skydiver. And look at his little foot. Do you see it? Right there. And there we go. So now we have an established rib cage in there, and we know where the skydiver is in relationship. Now, it's an egg as a simple idea like that, but the clavicles are the main thing in the hand lengths, because a rib cage isn't really like that. It's just a good start. It's a good start.
Like anything. I think like a lot of
Yeah,
people when with any sort of like a structural device or any shortcut kind of thing, people often are like, this is gonna work for only one thing. It's something that
yeah,
you build off of. The Loomis head, you build off of it, you know?
yeah. Yeah, people get stuck in method and they're frightened to jump off of it. So he's an idea. He's an idea
Mhm.
because we don't really see him. We see him here. We see the egg here.
Can we make the pencil a little bit larger, by the way?
Yes, sure.
Mark that you're making? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we
Is
go.
that too large? Maybe.
No,
Let's see.
I that looks great for
All right.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for
Oh,
anyone who's watching on like a phone or anything like that, I want to make sure they
oh
can
yeah.
see
Okay. So let's bring that little skydiver back in, so you can see him in the thicker end of ton. Okay. That's just a ballpark. You can fit him in there and jiggle that around, but that gets me where I want to go,
it. Mhm.
and I can immediately see the iliac crest in there and start to look at more mnemonics. You can think of many. There's many mnemonics, and you don't have to stick to one. You can go, which one is it that sticks with me the most? What is the weirdest memory clue? You can say a cheerleader skirt, like that, because what we can see now is it's coming out just a little flare like that. It gives us that flare, and it also tells you that below Mrs. V is the gluteus on the other side.
Mhm.
So things like that. The underpinning structure is this gestural structure thing, because I start with this idea. I want to feel that flow right through. And then you can redevelop it. You can go, well, this is going up toward the body like this, and this is coming down and then back out again, and back in, and back out, and back in. So that's when you're starting to become the sorcerer or the wizard. You're starting to get into, okay, we must be in potion 4 now, because we've taken this simple idea and made it a little bit more complex.
Mhm.
And by taking it step by step, it's always simple. It just appears complex later because you've gone simple on top of simple, until it becomes a complex thing to a viewer that's watching you do this thing and going, how the hell did you just do that? That's so complex. Well,
Just
it never was. Yeah, it was always simple. It was
Mhm.
always just from one simple idea to the next. And that's the way I've always been. I'm a simple man.
I think that the way that you break it down is one that enables it to be this way. People can absolutely take simple concepts sometimes while learning art and overcomplicate them for themselves.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it's good to have it be something that you break down in this kind of way and remind them actively that it's something simple.
Yeah, and there's many of them. So the whole course is basically a distillation of 25 years of constant, this works, this doesn't work. But I want to still leave in, because remember, you're going to make a bad drawing. And if you make a bad drawing one day, you're still a better artist than you were last week.
Mhm.
It's just the nature of the business. So I think there's a lot of students beat themselves up because they think they're getting worse because they made a bad drawing. It's just par for the course. And that's why I think that we should do lots of small drawings, or not small drawings, but short drawings, because that's part of it. That is the mileage. When
Mhm.
you do a drawing that you think's bad, that's gold, because at that moment you've just identified what you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And
If you
so
if you
just
go through if you were to go through thinking that every single drawing you made was great, then you should start asking questions.
yeah, you should start saying, you playing this safe, you know? Are you
Yeah.
just being spoon fed this knowledge and not putting anything in for yourself? So that's the reason why in this course I don't only do a drawing, I turn it. I keep doing the 5 minutes all the way around. So I'll do a complete turnaround in many of these courses, like you're starting to see here with the egg, for instance.
Mhm.
I'll show it from different angles. See, up, around, and then start to bend it.
Mhm. And just to make sure people do know, for anyone who's trying to like consider whether this is a course that can work for them, if you like the ideas that he's been talking about so far, this is probably a good course for you. If you're looking at this thinking, oh no, it's traditional, he's like drawing with a pencil and everything, these concepts will still apply to you drawing digitally or anything else like that. Just want to make sure and get that out there. The pencil sharpening part at the beginning, not going
Yeah,
to be as appropriate for you, but still going to be handy for you to know about because it does inform the way that you'll work.
that's brilliant, Stephen. Yes, absolutely. That's a question. We talked about this earlier. What are the questions I forget that were asked? And basically, evolutionary wise, we're not going to change. Well, I say that, and most of the students walking into my class are over 6 feet tall. I go, what is this? Is it going to end? What's going on? Is this the
you're just
Battle of the Amazons?
you're getting smaller, Patrick. That's what's
I
happening.
think I'm getting smaller. It's one of the two. But I had 3 students, and they're all female students, and they all walked in. They were 6'2" each. I went, am I in the future? So, but apart from that, Anatomy isn't going to change. So this is forever. This is for all our lifetimes. This isn't something that's going to go out of date. And it can be applied to digital art. And I was just talking with Stephen before this about digital art. And I used to do it. I used to do it for years and years. And then went back to traditional art because I just love it so much. It's so stressless. And you might think that, well, digital art is much less of a stress. But I've done both. And I think this is the most stress-free. But if you do both, if you say, well, I'm going to I always have a sketch pad with me, then my ideas are going straight onto that page.
Mhm.
And you don't have to worry about a power outage or plugging something in or dropping your computer, things
That's
like
fair.
that.
It's
You can
also
drop your,
it's a
yeah.
lot easier to sell an original piece for traditional art
Oh
as
yeah. Well,
well.
that's a
One
whole
other big consideration.
that's a whole different world. That's when I go to a LuxCon and put those big paintings up, and it looks like the Louvre, and the prices on them are,
Yeah.
who's got pockets that deep? You can't sell a digital print for more than what, $20 or something.
Yeah, like it really becomes about who you are, in much more of a way than it does with traditional art. If you're a traditional artist, absolutely. If someone knows your name, you can sell something for much more than if it
Yeah,
was if you weren't as well known. But in digital, it's a much bigger consideration.
yeah, it is, and
Uh,
that's the economic part of it. Yeah, but traditional art. Let's say you take my course and you become this great artist, right? It's got to happen. And then
Absolutely.
and then further down the line, you've saved all these little drawings that you've done. It's the little drawings that sell first
It's
because
true.
people go, I can afford this, and this is the beginning of my collection. So when I put sketches up for sale, they're gone in seconds. You
Yeah, with
know,
the smaller ticket items.
that's right. And also, when a collector has one piece, they want 10. That's what collectors
Mhm.
are. They're not one from every one people. I want this next one and the next one. So you begin this journey of suddenly, oh, what am I, a fine artist? Not. It's kind of looks that way, and you have both. So little streams of income if you're thinking about a future, because it's getting tougher. Uh,
Absolutely.
Traditional art is a stream of income. It's
There
right there.
At what point, I want to make sure that the people in the chat do know that we see these questions. Do you want to take any, or do you want to kind of leave a period between when you do some draw overs on your work and the student work that you're going to do draw overs later? Something between there where we'll answer some questions.
Thanks, Stephen. Whatever way you want to take them, I can take questions constantly.
Okay.
Constantly. I thrive on them, actually.
Okay. All right. Let's see. How about these then?
Okay.
We've got a few. There are a couple that I think are pretty outside of what we're kind of here for today.
Yeah.
Some of them they still work, but a couple I think are pretty far out there.
Yeah.
Um, this one I think it's very separate from the concept from today, but it still might be a fun one.
Okay.
So Craphead27, that's the name of the account, I swear, asked, when applying to art schools that require at least a year's worth of figure drawing experience, do you think they'd be able to tell I learned in 1 month? Patrick, what do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think they can tell. I think if you've done, first of all, if you keep it gestural, they won't be able to tell. If you put a lot of structural stuff in there and you're struggling with structure, they can tell. But if you fill a portfolio full of just magnificent, bold lines, I think it's going to be very tough to be turned on. But yes, structure will expose your weaknesses. So if it just looks like that, but you get a gestural, swathe of joy in there for all of your drawings, it's going to be very hard to say. But if you took my course, that sounds.
This is fine. This is fine. That's the thing that you're here to talk about. You made a course because it needed to exist, not because you
Yeah,
just wanted to make money or something. There's a reason
that's right.
for the thing.
Exactly. And no one sounds like, that I'm spruiking. That's why I always hesitate. But this course was built for me at 4. I was talking the other day, I always say 22, because at 22, I had a real crisis where I wanted to be the best artist. And it really stultified that progress because automatically I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And so this is all about, how do I get back into that child again, that mindset where I'm doing this because I love it. And every pencil stroke is a joy. That's what this is all about. And so I had to get back into that mindset again to have a longer career while everyone else was burning out. They were burning out because they were too serious about it. And so all of these things that I learned and then forgot and then started to put in place again as notes and then taught them. This is 25 years expedited. And then for that question that's just been asked there, it's all in there. So if you took a month of this, it's like going to school for 10 years because
Yeah.
there's 10 years of knowledge in practically every potion. Because
Plus,
I put it that way.
yeah,
So you
and
could.
I was gonna say it's structured in a way where they all build on each other. Like you said, it's a bunch of small things that build into what appears like a bigger thing. It's something that is uniquely poised to help you improve faster.
It's exactly that. It's really basically the opposite of me. So I had to dig deep and go, Patrick, put it together. Because I'm very loosey goosey. I'm all over the place. I learn very organically,
Mhm.
and that's great too because you always learn from your mistakes. Really intense. There's an intense pain to a mistake, and you learn it. And I put it all in here. And like you just saw the leap off of the little skydiver guy. Now we're in the trusty egg. So we've taken the skydiver and we've made him an egg, and we've put the skydiver on the egg, and now we're going to start putting some hips onto this and new mnemonics. And I explain this all the time. When you're watching a teacher, sometimes there's that deathly silence when they're doing their best stuff because they're concentrating so hard.
But
And
for
you're not
you,
hearing, yeah, you're not hearing the best stuff. But for me, what I do is I record it without a voiceover because I don't want to impede that sort of guru mindset. So I just draw with all the love I can, and I do the voiceover afterwards. And
mm,
so the voiceover is a separate, more focused idea where I'm not drawing. I'm saying this is what I'm doing here. And so it's a whole different world now. You've got this really clear mindset that continues to speak and never loses focus because I'm enjoying the drawing. So I'm
mhm,
enjoying the drawing and then doing the voiceover afterwards. And it's the most perfect way I can imagine to do this because you get the best of both worlds. You get a
mhm.
really clear insight into it. And I like I say, I would love to have gone back to myself at 22 and say, look how easy this could be.
Yeah.
If you just stop worrying about, really copying things and trying to be perfect at things, there's a much easier way to do this.
Mhm.
And it's to flow through these ideas. And then you can apply them to anything at all. You can paint with great authority. My painting time now is reduced to practically, when I started painting, probably a tenth of the time it takes me to do a painting now.
Mm.
And the painting's much better because I know it's going to be good and I know there's no stress to it. The procrastination I used to have before I made a painting was just off the charts. I'd do anything not to start the painting because I knew it was going to be really hard. Now I know it's going to be really easy, and I just whistle into the studio, start drawing on the canvas, and off I go into the sunset at the end of the day, dreaming about the next step because I know that I can continue to draw with paint. Even though I've got a nice drawing on the canvas, I can continue to change that if I want using these little mnemonics. Here we start to see the apprentice getting a little bit savvier. And for that question again, if you learned only this portion, this is potion 1, and we're 51 minutes in. If you got to that point there, 51 minutes, just kept repeating those ideas over and over and started applying them to your drawings, you'll be amazed at how simple it all becomes. You don't hear me speaking there, but all of these things are mnemonics. All
Mhm.
of these things are memory clues. And in the course, you hear them and you can come back to them. Right there, I'm doing a 1970s boob tube, which was basically a costume that people wore in discos. But what it
Mm.
did, it made the breasts really simple, but it kept the weight of them. And
Yeah.
so you could really simplify that idea and then be able to draw, let's say, a heroic figure that you don't have to change the breasts because they were in a brassiere or something.
Mhm.
Things like that. And it stops you worrying about one thing and then the next thing. It's two things and they relate to each other.
Mhm.
So one side to the other is always in this course. How does this arm relate to that arm? How does that breast relate to this breast? And what is gravity doing with all of this?
Mhm.
Very complex subjects, but one at a time, simple. Put them on top of each other. To the untrained eye, it looks complex. To you, it's a breeze, and you can whistle in your studio and whistle back out of it again. So the joy of wanting to draw now is constant in me. There's never a fear of drawing. There's always, I just want to draw. I want to draw.
You mentioned in there the one thing that you were talking about with the torso here was the egg. Can you go into that a little bit on one of the drawings or one of the paintings you've got?
Yeah, sure. Let's go into the egg. And you can see just up in the top left there as well, you can see how fluid the drawings start to become up here. So structure will kill your fluidity a little bit, but I'm always thinking gestural structure. I'm always putting a little curve on it, even here at that point. And that's quite structural. But if I fly forward here, start to see how the idea of I changed the arm. I thought, well, I put an arm here. Well, I put an arm up there. Look how simple an arm can be. Bump, bump, or bump, bump. These are all from imagination, and yet they have a life to them. So the jump off point of this being close to realism is very close. It's very close, but it has the energy of fluid lines based on gesture, based on gestural structure. The structures are tight. There's that 10th rib, and that's on the egg. See, the egg now is starting to become a subliminal thing right here. By the end of the course, these are almost invisible ideas, but at the very start, they're very solid ideas. So let's have a look on the egg. We can turn the egg around, actually. Let's have a look at this one, Solomon's Lost, one of my favorite paintings right here. The screen doesn't do justice to the oil paintings. It really doesn't. You can't see the translucency of it. You can't see the glazes. But we have what we have. So let's have a look at it. So the egg. Now, the egg for him would be, let's say that looks very complicated. What the hell's going on? Well, you can see the sternum. There it is there. You can see Mr. T right there. And so we know that the little skydiver's in here because the neck has to fit in.
I think we zoomed out a little bit. Can you make the pencil bigger again?
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe if I zoom in like this.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So Mr. T and Mrs. V. Now Mrs. V doesn't appear anymore, but the egg's still there. We know where the sternum would be. We have the hand lengths. So the hand length is up here. Hand length is here. And so the hand length, now there's perspective going on. So we're going down in this business. And that is crucial. If you're stuck in a method, you might go, it's a hand length, and then you draw perspective and you do a hand length as if it's not in perspective, then you've gone off the rails. So you have to remember now, perspective comes into it. So this hand length is shorter again, just like that one is shorter over here. So this little skydiver shows you where the perspective is. And then from here, we can go down to the 10th rib, and we are really getting into perspective there. The rib cage always makes itself known around about the 10th rib. So around about here, we would see that rib cage looking like that. So we know where he is in the back there, and this little foot will come out. Now that's a male figure, so we can put more thickness on it too. So the female figure can look really gnarly. Now she's way back in perspective. So the little skydiver, he's like that now. See that? So basically, little skydiver's a flat face. He doesn't have a dimensional face. He's a weird one. So he's got a little flat face. But look at how it gives us. Look, do you see that? Look at that beautiful clavicle before it disappears. Just gorgeous. And once again, just before it disappears right there. So now we have a hand length going back in space here, much shorter than this one. So you can always say to yourself, you can find the hand length on the longer side. But if you want proportion, then you work on the pinch side, or it's everything shorter. So there's a lot of mnemonics like that. As usual, the skydiver is just, if you want to really think of that, let's use the mnemonic we had a minute ago, the 1970s boob tube. Okay, so it's given us this. That's quite wonky, but you get the idea. So it's given us this. And at this point here, then that's the point just above that curve, usually, is a good place to find the end of the sternum. And from there now we have this. Like that, the little skydiver's back. So he's in space like this. Now there's flesh as well. So we can't go right to the edge because, there's flesh on top of the bone. And you don't have to be so crucial on this. Remember, these are just parameters. These are just ballpark ideas. And around about here, that's the 7th and 8th rib. I like to put a hard edge on that, like that. And then that starts to take the simple and make it more complex. But that seventh and eighth idea is just another thing that happens during the journey through the potions.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping it simple just with the egg idea, that's the egg. Now the egg, you can start with just an egg. You can just do that. And then put Mr. T and Mrs.
Build
V
it off of
up.
that.
Yeah, you can do that. And then say, okay, this little skydiver fits in there. So there's a million ways you can do it.
I love the little feet.
I love the little feet
It's
too.
always fun.
Just to get that edge of the 10th rib. It's great.
Yeah. There's a question here from Louise. Yeah. They were asking, you were mentioning the hand length. Can you please elaborate a bit? Is the clavicle length of a hand? Are you measuring to the end of the shoulder with the entire hand, including fingers?
That's a good idea. Yes, it is the fingers. So basically, when I'm doing a live class, I have the model take her hand and basically put it on top of her head to show that we're hand lengths are everywhere, right to the corners of your ears, like this. So hand lengths are everywhere. They're not for everyone. I mean, it's supposed to go up to the hairline. I've obviously got a giant brain because, you know what I mean? So that's the thing as well. You don't want to be stuck in a method. Mm-hmm. But basically, universally, it's the model's hand, remember? So universally, if I touch here, I'm touching the edge of that bone. And if I push my thumb in like that, I'm touching the other end of the bone here, like that. So there's one clavicle. There's a little gap in between. And then there's another clavicle here. So you can see I've left the gap there for the little, little head and the neck. There's also mnemonics like Fred Flintstone's tie. So you've got the manubrium here, and you've got the little tie like this, and that gives you the sternum. So if you can imagine a short tie, there's a million ways you can do it. But I like to keep it simple to begin with. But yeah, it's a hand length. This is a tricky one from the sternum down to from the manubrium, from the pit of the neck down to the bottom of the sternum. It's quite hard to do, but I have a model that can do it. She's quite flexible. Yeah, and then underneath. Yeah, go ahead.
There was one other question. Since you whipped out the anatomy terms here, Johannan had asked, do you need to have knowledge of anatomy to make the most of this course? And what are the things I should practice every day to become advanced in figure drawing and drawing in general? Let's just do the first part.
Okay.
The anatomy. Do they have to have a big anatomy knowledge to get through this course?
The answer is absolutely no. I think Leonardo da Vinci said it well. He says, don't draw anatomy. Simple as that. So once you start to show the anatomy, you're showing your inadequacy with anatomy. You're basically showing you're still learning the nuts and bolts. But what I'll do is I'll ease you into the anatomy, because this is an egg, right? And that is a little head, and there are two arms and feet, but really it's a clavicle. And the amount of times that I say clavicle and sternum as I'm drawing this little guy and 10th rib, you're really getting your anatomy free with any stress gone, because you're not even thinking about it. So by osmosis, by drawing along, you're hearing this constantly. And that's how we learn language. We didn't go to kindergarten and learn how to speak language. We learned it from repetition. So subliminally, I'll be saying 10th rib, I'll be saying 7th and 8th rib, and you're learning anatomy without even thinking about anatomy.
In that situation, you like the way that you're approaching it with the different devices is not even something where they have to be like, all right, the 10th rib, the 10th rib, the 10th rib. They can just think they can associate 10th rib with the foot of the little guy. Like
that's right. The little foot.
It'll just stick in this way. The things that you don't necessarily realize that become greater knowledge from smaller things.
Absolutely.
There are a couple other small questions here before we dive in, because I feel like, I want to really make sure that people know what they're getting into with the course. So this one is not about the course per se, but a person in the chat was asking, is it okay to draw the same thing again and again when you were learning, or is it better to draw similar things with variety so you maybe see how it's different for each of those things?
That's a great question, because that's essentially what I work on in the first, let's say, 3 potions, is to do the same thing over and over in slightly different variations. And once again, you're just having this stress-free drawing exercise, and you're learning so much with the repetition of what you've just learned. I'm doing it right here now. I'm bending that tube. So I work with the tube as well, a waist-wide tube, which I learned from Steve Houston. When he first did a waist-wide tube, I thought, that's very simple, Steve. Is that going to work? Works every time. I thought, well, that's amazing, isn't it? So it doesn't have to be complicated. So there's a lot of great masters in my work as well, because I was mentored by Steve Houston. and learn from Glenn Vilppu, and you seek the greats out. You
Mhm.
soon realize that half your bookshelf is really a loady old grift. So I took my bookshelf and went, these how to draw books don't teach you how to draw, and threw them all out.
Get
And
them
then
out
I
of
ended
there.
up get them out of there, and then ended up with great stuff. Like found Proko and thought, this guy Stan, was just so great, is so great at making complex simple, and that's a real gift. And so these other books were really teaching how to draw with stress.
Mm, mm.
It's how to draw with stress one, how to draw with stress two. That's what the books could have been named. And to be honest, the Bridgman books are very stressful.
They're information dense and very very
Yeah,
rigid as well.
they are, but
It's
I
not an
don't.
approach that works for everybody.
Yeah, but I don't want to bag them because they're brilliant books. They will become invaluable to you years down the line.
Mhm.
But if you really open those books now, it might overwhelm you to the point where there's no point because it's just too hard.
Yeah. I
So
think it's what happens to a lot of people with anatomy, honestly.
yeah, I
They
think
they they dive in and they think that they have to remember the name of every single muscle and every single tendon and every single area.
yeah,
Start like it's like anything else in art. Start big, work to small.
yeah, absolutely. And I use mnemonics if you want to learn anatomy. Like for instance, the tensor fascia latte is such a hard thing to remember, right? You can't remember. Nobody can remember that.
That's my favorite drink at Starbucks.
Exactly. And that's how I think of it too. So you've got the same mindset as me, Stephen. So I think if your face is tense, have a latte. Tensor fascia latte. And you remember it forever. And there's so many. That's why I always try and remember. I always try and think of anatomy as a mnemonic. A strange memory clue is much easier to remember
Yeah.
and really almost impossible to shake off. Once you start making strange memories, they're nearly impossible to forget.
Yeah.
And that's how I teach anatomy. I think about the shapes. You could call the 10th rib skydiver foot for the rest of your life. And you'll always see a skydiver's foot, which is brilliant, rather than a 10th rib, which is gnarly.
Yeah.
So
And
that kind of
no
stuff.
one has to know that's how you're thinking of it either.
That's
When
right.
when you're just sitting there making beautiful art, they don't know
Yeah,
you're thinking skydiver foot.
that's right.
Fine.
They have no idea. They have no idea. And then you can start drawing like this. You can see, and what I do is I split the screen so that you can pause it at any time. And my recommendation, if you take this course, is to, let's say you're at this stage. Let's say you're at that stage and you go, wow, that was a lot of stuff. And you feel that if you go beyond that, you'll forget it. Draw that stage again and draw it again. And then move to this stage and draw that again and again. And when I fit this thigh in, there's so much, there's a lot of stuff in here that if I was to start speaking about it, we'd be here for 20 hours. But basically, I have ways to fit that thigh in that you'll never forget. And that 1970s belt, there's something about the 70s that were just so stylish. That 1970s belt works way better for me than many other ideas that I've thought of to find that gap between the iliac crest and where the leg inserts. Because I can visually see a 1970s belt. And not only that, it gives you the curve of the crest right round to the back of the hips.
Yeah,
So
you get that free contour out of it.
That's right. And clothes really fit the body. I mean, they're hanging on those hips. And a belt, but not everything does, but a belt is tight. And so a belt will curve around to the back. And you can actually say, there's the iliac crest. It's just the top of that belt. So things like that. And when you lift your leg up, you pinch against a belt, a big thick belt like that. And you go, why am I pinching against this belt? What is that? It's your rectus femoris. And that's a hard thing to remember. But my model, Alana Briegelmans, she says, because she's learning anatomy through being my model, she says she was at a nightclub and a creep come up to her and she says, I wrecked him with my femoris. Because that's what your rectus femoris does. It lifts your leg up like this. She didn't really, but she was having a laugh with it. That's how she remembered rectus femoris. So she's building on her own memory clues as well.
That's great. I love that.
It's great, isn't it? Rectus femoris. Can't forget it now. You rectum with your femoris, and that's exactly what that muscle does. It lifts your leg up. Go ahead, Stephen.
We have one more question here. I think before we'll dive into another bit about the course here.
Okay.
They were asking, do any of these potions include talking about the head?
Tons. I'm listening. There's actually 2 potions on the head.
Okay.
There's exotic heads. There's simple heads and exotic heads. So fantasy styled heads up here. And everything's based on fantasy. So when I draw a head, it's not just your average head. Look at the feeling in that head. It has to have, it has to be able to become a sorcerer. It has to be able to become an Egyptian queen. It has to have that exotic feel to it. But you could also make it a plain person. I'll draw a couple of little secondary characters in here. They're quite dumpy, you know, but they'll always be the best dumpy. So I remember learning how to write a long, long time ago, and they said that every character you write, this was great advice, every character you write, they should be the best at what they are. So if they're boring, they better be really boring, right? And if they're stupid, they got to be really stupid, you know, so that we get the idea of it. Now that's a bit schlocky. It takes it too far. But that's my idea too, is go for that extreme. You can always pull back. You can always come back on it. And if it's too much, you know, you see people telling jokes and they're laughing before the joke because they know the end of it, which kind of kills the joke. You know, was he telling a joke? I didn't hear the end of it. So basically, sometimes you go too far with it, and I always pull back. But I like the idea of pushing it until it's broken, because you can always pull it back. So being safe is not a good idea, because remember, it's just a dirty mark on a piece of paper. I mean, you've got nothing to lose.
And you can smudge it out. You can erase it. You can work back from there. You might as well experiment while you're on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Push it till it breaks. Now, for, like I say, I'm listening to students. Some students don't have the same, well, not everyone has the same mindset. But here I go with ideas that were really invaluable to me, structural ideas. Look how I pulled that cheekbone from the top of the ear down to the corners of the mouth. Now, there's a ton of anatomy in there, but I'm not talking anatomy at all. I could say zygomatic arch. I could say zygomatic major and minor muscles. I could say all of that, and it's all in there. But basically, it's a line that comes down to the corner of your mouth. And for me, that places the cheekbone. If you draw a line across under the nose, that you can find that bone. You can actually put your finger on it right now, put your finger under your nose, and draw your finger across and feel that bone, right? That's a lot of stuff, and one line explains it all. I'll bet there's a million people out there doing this right now.
They're going and touching the thing.
They're touching their cheekbones right now. And you can drag it right up to the top of your ear. And what that'll do is, if you get a broad end of your pencil now, you can have a high cheekbone, a low cheekbone, just based on that broad where you put it next. And for me, that takes away all the complication of studying a photo and saying, this shadow looks, is it a long shadow? Is it a broad shadow? What is it? Because in different light, you're going to have different shadows. It's always going to be here. It's always going to be there. And then you have a chance to wobble in and out of it as much as you like. Once you place that line, you're always in the ballpark to change that cheekbone and that face to anything you want. So if you're meticulously minded, you start here and you draw over and over on these structural ideas. But there's always a little bit of exoticism to them. And then I'll expand that idea. Remember, simple on top of simple becomes complex, but it never is complex. So now I'm going to curve around from the center of the eye, because that's where the light changes, from the center of the eye. Not the top, not below, from the center of the eye. Look at any broadcaster, anyone reading the news, and just have a look at that light change on the cheekbone. It's right there in the center of the eye. And now we've made that a little bit more, you can say exotic, but it's definitely a little bit more sophisticated than it was a second ago. So very simple to complex, and you can see what you can get. Like I said, these are drawn from imagination, and then I'll do them from underneath, and I keep them very, very simple. And these lines as well, to show you where the widest point is just going to happen. It's always just where the eyebrow above the ear, near enough, because I never want to say always. Usually, it's going to be right there, the widest point of the head. So you'll see a lot of bad instructional say the face is 5 eyes wide, but it's not. It's the head is. The head is 5 eyes wide across here. So you'll see a lot of stuff where it's sort of regurgitated knowledge that wasn't really, it was only half heard, and then it becomes a fact.
Yeah, just never reinterrogated, and then people apply it without thinking about it.
That's a good way to put it. Never reinterrogated. And I see so much stuff on the internet There's that this guy goes by. Oh yeah, I
That
finished the
was
studio.
that was a loud one.
You hear it,
Goodness.
Stephen? I finished the sound studio.
Oh,
Remember last
really?
time we talked? I finished it. I went down and built it all.
Congratulations. Can,
Thank
can we
you.
can we get claps in the chat for Patrick finishing his new recording space there?
It was because of that guy, and that's why I'm so optimistic. I've always been an optimist.
I
That,
don't blame you.
that guy, when I would do a lovely soliloquy, and I would go,
You're in the last like period of the sentence.
I thought that's perfect, and he would go by. My God, and I'd have to do it again, and it just didn't have the same. It didn't have the honesty to it. You could tell that I'd already done this before. It's like my favorite conversation piece that I just regurgitate.
Yeah.
No, I love him. I go, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got off my pudding ass and gone underneath and built a sound studio.
I'm glad you got this.
Do you think they'd be interested in seeing it?
So I think everyone here would be, personally.
I'll have a quick look. Remember, nothing's ever lost. I used to think my years on the building site were lost years. I'm dreading turning this photos on. Maybe we're okay.
Here we go. Here we go.
I think we're okay. I put them up here because I knew there was nothing frightening in it.
Look at all this.
Look at that.
I'm gonna solo the screen.
Look at that.
Here's a recording space.
The hero mode. Look at that. These are our 20.
You look like an adventurer here.
Yes, it's like that, isn't it? It's less of the potato picking farmer that from the land I came from, but these are our 27 soundproof. Remember last time I asked you because your sound was so good, is the soundproof walls? These are our 27 batons that I put in there. But when you're an artist, when you become an artist and you solve so many problems, and I thought I'm going to build a sound studio, I can do that because there's really the kind of problem solving you do when you're drawing is incredible. And this is quite simple now, even though it's daunting. So when it began, it was like I had this space. It's a cringe, really, when I show just what a mess. Look at that.
That's how it goes.
Look at that. That's a
It's
disgrace.
its own separate structure. That's wonderful.
That's a disgrace.
Air gap.
But that's right. There's air gaps as well. But I found that within my basement, I could find a space, and there it was, right there. And it had to go between these steel pillars because we can't have iron because it reverberates.
Yeah.
But this is an iron pillar here, so I won't bore people with it too much. But basically, one of the toughest things was getting that iron pillar gone. So in here, you can see the mess of it. So that's the iron pillar. It has a big wooden strut in it. Right there.
The iron pillar sounds like a person talking about some world history event.
It does.
It sounds epic.
I'm the iron pillar. But here you can see I'm really getting into it at that point, and I get rid of all that terror. Look at the stuff you have to think about too. You could call this gestural structure. There was bolts there that I couldn't take out because the house would fall down. And so am I going to live with this big bolt? And then I put these pieces of wood in there and put this architrave on top. Gone. There it is. And now once you get to that point, it's just like art. I did a little test. There was a little test where I brought some of my stuff from up here and put it together and went, this is going to work. That's when I knew it was going to work. So I've finished it since. You can see this is going to be the big light box right there. And there's a camera at this point now. I've put the bolt in for the camera up there. So yeah, that's my little sound studio. I'll show you the rest of it later when it's complete.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's practically done.
That's awesome to hear. I'm so glad because this is an eternal battle for everyone here at Proko. We also have this problem. There are planes constantly flying overhead here.
You have those jarhead guys, don't you? Have that big.
There's a huge base just across the massive highway that's also really loud. But we just over time sorted it out. We got a couple panels that we keep here in studio, and then we've kind of worked it out to where most of the time you don't hear anything. Yeah,
that was I watched that video when you found the panel. That was a great find, really. You had a church that was going out of business, and you
for the panels.
That was very good. That was a very good catch. That was brilliant.
We got very lucky with those for sure.
Yeah, because they can get expensive. But yeah, once that was the thing when I built the basement. You do a clap test like that, and then you go boo boo boo, and you go, wow. It's working because the sound won't leave the room, but now you've got this echo, and now you've got to soften it.
I love when you go into a room that's just perfectly balanced, like
Mhm.
just a little bit of sound reverberation, but
Yeah,
it doesn't slap back where you hear a delay on it. It's
yeah,
mm, mm,
yeah.
mm.
I know. That guy that I love now that I used to detest,
Uh-huh.
he went past the other night when I was putting some I was hanging the door. The hardest thing, hanging the door. I had to build a
That's right.
door because it's a small door. It's a little cathedral door. Had to fit it to size. And he went past, and I went, "It's the hot rod guy!" And I ran into the sound studio and listened, and I couldn't hear him. And I thought,
Wonderful.
"It's done. It's complete." He was my sound check. Anyway, look, I've gone all way off track.
What a legend. I do want to say here, in case anyone like we were talking about awesome things in sound panels and everything like that, which is important and key, and just another indicator of the work that Patrick puts into these courses that he makes for you guys.
Yeah,
I want to remind everyone that the whole reason that we're here is because Patrick has a brand new course on Proko right now,
that's right.
Fantasy Figure Drawing Wizardry.
Uh-huh.
The things that we're showing here are all things that are taught in there in a way that's structured very nicely for a brand new beginner. Some of you might have watched some of Patrick's videos on Proko before and seen him dive into this deep knowledge, and you don't necessarily know where to start. It's okay. It's okay. He's got the simple devices that built with simple devices to make the complex drawings that he makes, and you can learn them too right now on proko.com/Patrick Jones. That's
And
this
isn't there?
this
And
URL right here.
and Stephen, did you mention there's 20% off for the next week?
I didn't, but now they know. Yeah, right now since it's on pre-sale, you guys can get for 20% off. For how much longer? Is that just one more week?
I think it's a week. I
That's
can't remember the exact
you,
date.
no matter how much time it is, if you guys buy it today, you'll have it for the 20% off. So
There
just
you
go do
go.
that. There
That's
are actually a couple
exactly.
people here in the chat who did mention this.
Oh
That
yeah.
they did go and pick it up. One person said it was the best half-drunk decision they've ever made. They went and bought it right now.
That's brilliant.
So I appreciate you guys.
It
Uh,
is. That's brilliant. It reminds me of Dali. When Dali painted his first big surrealist masterpiece, he did it when he was drunk, and he woke up the next morning and was surprised to see it there.
like, wow, look at this thing I did.
Sometimes it's not a bad idea to just let it happen. Go. I think I'll do a bit of painting here. I'm just back from the pub. Amazing. Yeah. So the
Look
course.
what
Yeah,
it led to.
I know. And well, yeah, if it's true, Dali was a showman. So yeah, in the course as well, like the students always say to me, "What about babies?" It's like you do one thing, they go, "But yeah, but what about?" It's like it's always a challenge. It's interesting. But what about babies? And so I thought I'll do a little baby there. And part of it at this point here is that I'll change the proportions back and forth to
Mm,
get many different variations of a character.
mm,
So it'll do all of that. I'm trying to basically put everything in for every student that's ever asked a question. So that's why I love questions, because it takes me into that realm of this is what people need. This is what a
mhm,
student needs. And of course, loads of mnemonics like the squashed baseball here that we can understand a baseball because it has stitching on it.
mhm.
And then that'll stop you drawing mouths that are too long from a 3/4 view because it has to cross that stitching and go around the corner. So that was a revelation to me when I was a kid, because you only look at people generally anyway from the front, and when they're talking, you just feel that the mouth is straight across,
Mhm,
when really it's going around the corner. You
mhm.
put your fingers there, and you put another finger here, and you're touching a ball. You're touching a muzzle. So that was a big revelation for me, which shouldn't have been, but that's what happens. You don't think about things.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. There's the unknown, and then there's the unknown. That's the most terrifying unknown of all. You really don't
The
know
deepest unknown.
the deepest unknown, and so
The
I'm trying to unlock those unknowns. Well, basically, they were unknown to me, and now they're not.
Yeah, and so you're sharing that knowledge that you found along the
That's
way.
right. Yeah,
There was one earlier, you had talked about the skirt and the belt, the cheerleader skirt, the belt kind of area.
yeah.
Croak here in the chat, the person who did say that they bought it while half drunk,
Oh yeah,
um, they said that they wanted to, they would love to see the egg connect to the hip. Would you like
yeah.
to go into that?
Yeah, let's go find that.
And if someone wanted to see this because they bought the course outside of this like this live stream right now, what potion would that be in?
That potion is Here's the thing it does. I'll have to go. I think sit in female structure. Is that potion 5? Are you
Okay.
guys selling them individually, by the way? Are you doing that
No,
as
no,
well?
no, no,
Oh,
no, no. I
oh,
just want
just
to
how
like
to find it.
to kind of know like where this will be addressed in the course. Like, is it a little bit
Yeah,
earlier on or a little bit later? What do you think?
that's it'll be early. The egg attachment to the hip is so crucial that
Mm,
it's gonna be early.
okay.
Let's have a look there. Well, it starts with exotic music.
We got some music there.
I want it to be so special, you know. I just want it to always have.
I feel like I can make that sound with my mic stand, Patrick.
Oh yeah, it
Let's
has
see.
that feel, doesn't it? It's like
Let's see.
boom, 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 and it has this. Yeah, that's right, and it has this chimera at the end. So basically, I wanted to create something that I would love. I love nice things, you know. I don't want to be. If I go to a life draw room and it's just a life draw room, what makes it a little special? I was talking to Rachel and Melanie who critique on Proko the other
Mm.
day, and they're going to put a life draw class together. And I said,
Oh,
make
nice.
it. I said to them, make it a little special. Call it R&M or something. Put a little wooden plaque out the front so that when people walk in, it's not just a life draw. It's a Rachel and Melanie experience.
Mm.
So I wanted to be that, and I always loved when something had a start to it. Like I remember when they started making movies and they didn't have credits at the start. They just got into
Mhm.
the movie. I went, hold on, did I walk in halfway? I like a little introduction. I like a little boom, 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 and you get relaxed. And at the end, there's a little chimera of brass chimes to let you know that that's one potion finished.
Mm.
At the very, very end. So that boom, boom. I don't know if people can hear that on the stream.
I can hear it, so
Yeah,
I think they might be able to also. Then
yeah. Do you hear that?
I definitely do.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't.
If
But
if
that's
you
not,
if you guys don't, let us know. But I imagine you hear it.
yeah. Well, Steve Houston sent me this beautiful singing bowl, and I clink it every morning, and it sings. Ooh, just gets me in that
A little,
mood.
little zone.
Yeah, gets me in that zone. And there'll also be. It sounds like I demonize proportions. They're essential, but I want to make them simple. And so I'll take the heads, but I don't want to do an 8-head high body, which I actually do in the course, but I expanded into an Amazon.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I want to break out of it. You can see that in all my other courses anyway. There's tons and tons of it. You've got all my books there to work from. They're all on proko.com.
This is
So,
true.
yep, they're all there. So you can get all that stuff. So this is for, let's take the rigidity out of it a little bit and say, well, let's just work with heads and a torso. And then we can work with the other stuff later. I think if you get the torso right, you can't lose. So here I'm dividing basically how a head fits into from the chin down to the nipples down to the navel there. And you can see where the nose just lands right on that 10th rib. That's complicated. But after a while, you start to imagine a head that would do that. And it becomes this point where you're not drawing torsos too long because they're not that big. A torso is not that big. So I'm starting to put them in place here. I think we talked about this before, Stephen. What I did as a little experiment is I put all the techniques together that didn't work and used them all to see
Okay.
how I'd go. And actually, they didn't come out too badly. But what I did was I added my egg to it. And I think that's what changed the world. Having my little egg and my skydiver meant that I could now put in this difficult stuff. And it actually
Yeah.
didn't, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, because
But
when the bones are good, the rest of it can still work. Even
yeah,
if you don't necessarily make it the best on top.
that's right. But see this kind of stuff here when I was starting out, it did me no good at all. It was just harm. It was harm all the way. It was over engineered. It was
Mm.
definitely that. But I tried it out. But the second I put my gesture on top of it, the whole world changes. So the second I do this, roundabout here, you can see that the little skydiver is taking me out of that world of this, but now you can see how the world comes back into play again. Because I'm no longer thinking of this over-engineered stuff. I'm thinking of that 1970s belt again, going around. Thinking of that great trochanter, the top of it being with the pubic hair ends, that little triangle. So I've got my own mnemonics in here to build on top of this stuff that was too complex. And it's got me out of that trouble. So if you've been in the world of complex and you're going, it's hard all the time now. I always seem to be back at square one, even though I've got all this knowledge. Sometimes the knowledge is over-engineered and you're always back to square one because it's just too difficult to retain. But the fact that I have now simplified this means I can go into that complex stuff and be able to navigate it a little better. But I'm still
Mhm.
not going to use it. It was just an experiment to
Yeah.
see how I could get out of trouble using methods that didn't work for me personally, that
Yeah.
didn't work for me.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it fun.
That's what makes it
It's not just a not just a course where you're teaching what to do. You're showing some of the other stuff because art's about exploration, you know?
It is, and everything's valuable. Every single thing is valuable. You know, if you even mistakes, I think are very invaluable. You know,
Mhm.
but there, look at Mr. T. Look how valuable for me that is. Look at Mr. T bend. I'm really pushing that bend now.
That's a
And what have
lot.
we at? Yeah, and what have we added here? A little pair of underpants to attach onto Mrs. V. So there's simple on top of simple. So there I am starting to put the rib cage in connection with the hips. Now, for me, I like to use another method, which you'll see in there, which is basically two same-sized eggs. But I want to put in every method that I can think of that would help a different mindset.
Mhm.
And they can all come together, and you can use one, throw one away, keep one, add both, whatever you like, mix and match the whole thing. So everything's in here for you to mix and match. And it took me a long time to understand that when I first taught a class, I went in and just blurted out everything I know, and nobody learned a thing. Because really, you can't really retain more than five things. And it's those five things that are important to you is what you remember. And so I started to slow the whole process down and concentrate on five real essential things. And each one of these potions has five essential things in every little drawing that I do. Roundabouts. I'm not going to be that rigid, but these are essential things for connecting the egg to the hips right
Mhm.
here and using those mnemonics. And there now I can start to pinch that leg in below that belt. So
Would
even
you say
within this short, yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
I was gonna say, would you say that you do more than one way to connect the hips to the
Oh
rib
yeah,
cage?
yeah, 100 ways.
Okay.
Well, I'll say 100. That's hyperbole.
Is it
A
I
lot
mean,
of a lot
I
of
should say
ways.
in the ones that you teach in the potion lessons here, like,
Yeah,
do you think that you cover multiples of those
yeah,
ways?
yeah, absolutely. I'm doing it right
Okay.
now. So basically, I started with a pair there. So that's a holistic idea. And here's what I like the most. So you might like something else, but this is what I like the most because I like basically two things that are similar in size. So this egg and the bottom, which is basically equating to what the gluteus would be, that these are the same as the overlap. So that size there and this size here are the same. And for me, that's very simple, as long as they overlap. And what's great about the overlap is now it becomes the upper abs ending. So the egg really is just an idea because there's no bones in here to find the upper ab end, and the 10th rib is the little skydiver foot. Notice how he's starting to fade. Do you see that? He's starting to become a memory. And that's what'll happen with you too. You'll start to put
Oh, that's
this,
existential.
yeah, it becomes a subconscious thing. Like Leonardo da Vinci says, you don't draw anatomy. And you could equate that to you don't draw the nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts gradually fade, and then you're drawing like this wizard. There's the course, apprentice to wizard, right there. That's it in a nutshell. But look how beautiful that's starting to become in an incredibly short time. And that's another great thing about videos is you can slow it down. You can go half speed and really take your time with it. You can't do that in real life. That would be weird. But you can do it here
In this universe, like this situation.
in this very situation.
Uh, there was one question that came up that someone did want to approach, and then someone else in the chat asked about this as well. I think the
Yeah.
whole course is about this, but
Yes.
I want to know your answer.
Okay.
How can you increase your speed? I'm trying to finish a sketch in Photoshop. I only have 30 minutes a day to do it, and I still don't finish.
It's a brilliant question. If you want to go fast, go slow. The second that you are drawing faster than your thoughts, the wheels are off. And so you're just going to compound an error with another error, and the rest of your day will be correcting mistakes. So if every line is a thought, you get under the next thought and the next thought. And if it's a clarity of thought like I'm doing here, that time will go past really fast. And you won't have stressed at all. You've gone in there slowly, what seems slow. Basically, if you draw faster than your speed of thought,
Mhm.
you're out of control. You're just out of control. So if you slow it down, and that's why I've constructed this to be a step-by-step build on this over and over. And I'm starting to make simple complex here, but it's a simple thing. So we already did the simple 2 eggs. And now by this potion, which I think is potion 4 or something, I'm starting to break down these halves. I like halves all the way. So I had 2 halves. And then I did another half for the hips, and then another half down below for the top of the pubic bone,
Mhm.
or the general area of the pubic bone. And that equates to the top of the great trochanter. Now that's a lot of stuff that I've just said. But you've already been, let's imagine that you've taken the course and you're into this third hour, fourth hour, and you've repeated over and over to the point where not all of that is making perfect sense because you've drawn it time and time again. And like I say, I'm talking the whole time about the process.
Mhm.
And if you're listening and drawing along by osmosis, you're already imbibing all of these thoughts. And you could, remember those old books, before the internet, you could buy How to Learn French,
Uh-huh.
and you learn it in your sleep. You put your headphones on, you go to sleep. Didn't work.
Books on tape.
Bloody old nonsense. But if you listen to it while you're awake, by Jove,
It'll stick.
it's gonna stick because it's always in there. But mnemonics will really make it stick as well.
Yeah.
So here, an answer to the other question, Stephen, how many ways? Look at the new ways now. Do you see it? Look how this has become now almost like a breastplate. Do you see that? You can use anything you like, and then you can put this little guy back in top. And now the end of these upper abs, now we can make them longer or shorter, because that's what happens with people. It can be long or short.
Mhm.
So now it's an egg with a little sort of shape to it. It could almost be anything you like. It could be Megatron. You see, that could be eyes. That could be a big mouth plate right there, and that could be the teeth. Whatever you want as a mnemonic that will help it stick. And at this point now, we're starting to put in the latissimus. See that? So we're not taking this egg and we're making it a cape or whatever you want it to be, or bear ears, like a grizzly bear
Mhm.
ear.
I think there's
Yep.
there's one from, I forget exactly the muscle, but the name of the thing. But there's one that Stephen Michael Hampton loves
Yeah.
talking about, where he has like a little bear that's like going around and like hugging.
Oh, I wonder what
Something.
that is. I wonder
Yeah,
what that is.
I'll have to find out which muscle this was. But yeah, he's talked about it in all the videos that we've done with him. And
Oh,
just
yeah.
having something like that sticks when you go to actually render this area of the body, it doesn't become some complex process that you have to think about, like, how does this thing wrap around here or anything like that? What does that imply? You just
Yeah.
go, you put on the 70s belt.
Yeah.
That's
You put
it.
on the 70s belt. Yeah. And also mermaids. I love, because I'm keeping this in fantasy realm.
Mhm.
Mermaid. I love a mermaid's tail. So here's an answer once again to that question about the cheerleader skirt, whatever you want it to be. It can be anything. And at this point now, I'm making it could be the top of a coffee table, whatever you like. But basically, the main thing is that once you get past the great trochanter, you're flaring out, and then you're flaring back in again. So you can't flare out from here, but you can always flare out from here. So anywhere along this point, you can make those hips as wide as you like, and it all rings true. And I can always find the top of the great trochanter from the top of the pubic triangle, or Mrs. V. And so I can do these beautiful hips very, very quickly. In answer to the other question, how do I do this quickly? By drawing all this other stuff slowly until the point where it looks quick. Look how quick that drawing went in. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just seconds, isn't it? It's really just seconds at the end of the day. But because every line is mileage and every line is a thought, I'm enjoying that process over and over. It's almost like a mantra. Sartorius attaches to the top of the hip crest, comes around under the knee. Lovely. What a
Yeah,
beautiful journey.
the hip bone connects to the
The
leg
thigh bone, the
bone.
leg
Yeah.
bone. I remember that. I loved that as a
Yeah.
kid. I thought that was brilliant. And that's a great way to remember things. That was I don't think it was entirely
No,
anatomically
they were
correct song,
they
but
were
it was a
skipping
great
some
idea.
stuff, for sure.
It was a great idea. And there, once again, is another way to do it, is to just free it up. So when you're doing a lot of structure, you want to break free of that and just get gestural again. So, that one line there, for instance, is representing obliques all the way down. The obliques aren't just the pinch area here. They go all the way up. They go all the way up to the 5th rib on the front of the body and down to the 12th rib on the back. And that, you don't have to care about that because you don't see it. But you do see this shadow in certain positions. So you don't have to know all the anatomy. And what I do is I put it in place as I draw with thought stress. Like I say, I don't make a big
Mhm.
deal of it. But we don't need to know every single point. But I will point out when it's crucial that this line represents that idea.
What would you say in this course? What was the thing that you were most excited to cover that had been big questions that you got from other courses that you had made in the past?
Well, first of all, I was really excited about having a new camera and
That's fair.
a new sound and everything. I thought, this is gorgeous. I can't believe how great it all is, you know? I've always used the state of the art that I had, as we all have, you know, and then a new toy comes out. So I was excited about that. The fact that I don't have to worry about, look how beautiful the light is. I don't have to worry so much about that, which is all a constant pain, and where the shadows are falling. So I was very excited that it was going to be a beautiful thing. And the shadows weren't going to impede the drawing. That was the main thing to begin with, that I knew it was going to be beautiful. I mean, look, that took such a lot of wizardry to work out a camera system where where's the shadows gone? Is he a vampire? Why is he casting no shadows? So that was exciting. That was exciting.
When you nail that recording setup, it's just it's the best.
You'll think it's Sir Richard Burton speaking, not me. It'll be like that. And we talked about that, didn't we, Stephen? Sometimes you get a radio voice, so gotta watch out for that. Gotta talk to people more. So
you start getting into it, and you start really
I gotta be very careful of that.
You can never wear headphones while recording audio for something, or you just naturally start doing NPR voice.
Is that right? That's a good tip. I never do wear them, so that's a good tip not to do it. Keep on doing what you've been doing, which is don't do that. Yeah. So I went off track there. It is getting a bit more complicated now, but it's not complicated. By this point in the potion, you're starting to get the idea that you can now add to it. And one of the questions that was asked all the time was, yes, but you know, all these female figures, when are we going to see a male figure? You know? And so I have a whole chapter on barbarian rhythm, because I want the male figure to show rhythm, which is why I draw so many female figures, because it's just a joy rhythmically to do them. And so there's a whole section where I draw the male figure, but I keep it gestural all the way. In fact, we end with that. Potion 17 is all about bringing life into a standing pose.
Nice.
So I challenge myself every time to just break the rules and push out. Like, for instance, that leg's pushing out more than really anatomically. It would be a bit stressful on the body, but boy, does it look great.
Yeah, it's to give some exaggeration. Like you said, you want to push something and really give it that motion so it's clear. It reads.
Yeah. And if you're drawing comic books, you really got to have your figures in extreme motion.
Certainly.
It's got to be exciting. It's got to be John Buscema, which I also talk about a lot. A great artist called John Buscema.
He's a great artist.
Oh boy, it taught me so much. So I cover a lot of his methodology that he didn't tell us. So he drew the book How to Draw the Marvel Way and never showed us anything. Really, practically nothing. It's all hyperbole. But it was a bestseller. And so what I did was I thought, well, here's what I would have liked John to show us.
Fair. That's
fair. So I extrapolate on, the ghost of John Buscema. I extrapolate, here's how I believe he got to where he was, and the genius that he was. So I'm pretty cheeky doing it.
I think that's okay. That's what art is. We stand on the shoulders of giants. You're still recognizing that they're giants. Maybe they just didn't make the best educational material sometimes.
Yeah, I think he was a begrudging guy. I don't think he wanted to do it. I saw the video. There's a video with him and Stan Lee, and he obviously doesn't want to be there. He wants to be anywhere but there, He's even given derivative looks to Steve, derisive looks to Stan. He's going, yeah.
I thought you meant Ditko for a second.
What's that?
I thought you meant Steve Ditko for a second.
I did for a second, because he also had a beef with Stan Lee. There's so much.
Everyone had
so much stuff. Oh boy, they were not a happy bunch.
No, they were not.
Well, I don't want to get into that. That's sort of down the pub talk. But yeah, you can see how it gets more and more in depth for this as we go. So you just build on it. So I'm putting the intercostal muscles in here, and there's the serratus. Just think of them as its fingers coming around and grabbing onto maybe that might be the bear, fingers grabbing onto the ribs. Possibly.
That might be, yeah. Because I told him my favorite name for that whole area.
Yeah.
I think the serratus it's a wonderful name because it looks serrated and everything.
Yeah.
I've always referred to them as the riblets because I think it's funny.
That's good. The riblets is great. That is a really good idea. Because they ripple as well, don't they? So yeah, they are one of my favorite sets of muscles. But you can see here, also my mindset is just fill a page. One of the worst things I think for creativity is to have a big, bright, brand new page and you draw one drawing on it and then you turn it over and start another one, because you're starting from scratch again.
I see.
So it's too precious. So I believe in just drawing. Fill a page, and right away you know that it's not supposed to be a finished drawing, and so all that pressure is off, and now you can really get your mileage going. So these pages are all mileage. It's all about newsprint, and if you've got a what was that one you recommended, Stephen, that's getting really good with the pencil technology?
So was it for the iPads?
For the iPads, what was the
for Procreate?
Procreate,
yeah, Procreate, and especially new brush is coming. If you guys don't follow Kyle Webster, follow him. He's doing great. He's got a bunch of new stuff.
That's it. So if you get the right drawing tool where your pencil's gliding smoothly across the surface, all you're thinking now is the drawing. And that's why this applies to anything. So just find, my perfect surface is smooth newsprint. And this is I call this a Jeff Watts pencil because he recommended it. And I thought this is a great drawing pencil. This is a Conte of Paris Pierre Nord B 1710. So I'll put that in your arsenal. That sounded a bit rude, didn't it? Put that in your arsenal. So you'll not forget that mnemonic. Put that in your arsenal, and now you've got a pencil that's not going to impede your drawing because there's hardly any grit in it. So it's a perfect pencil for mileage. And so that's me. I've got my perfect mileage set up, that pencil, smooth newsprint stretched, and I'm off and running. So you can translate that to your Procreate tablet, and you're off and running. And Stephen, you said to me earlier, you can actually get something with a tooth to put over.
Yeah, paper-like.
And a tooth makes basically what stops the pencil sliding too much, which I think is essential on a glossy surface. Yeah, like my Wacom tablet has a tooth to it.
Yeah, if you go to try to mimic the things that you see someone do in traditional art with a fully slick surface, it's not going to feel right. You'll overshoot it. You have to have so much more precision and control in your hand, and I think it doesn't let you just naturally exist. There's some things that are just tried and true for art, and that's one of them.
Yeah, if you're fighting the materials, your mind's not on the game. You're thinking about, this is sketchy and this is gritty, I have to sharpen that. And that's another good point as well. You don't have to worry about with Procreate, but I always have at least 5 pencils sharpened for a life draw room.
That's a good idea. So you don't have to stop, take a break from it.
Yeah, once you stop, you've lost your mojo. It's a definite. You've lost some of your mojo once you stop, and especially if it's broken too. You just go, something went wrong, and once you're in the something went wrong mindset, it's very hard to come back out of that again. So, that's what I like to do. I put these mindsets in here as well. As I draw, I say, here's a good idea as well. So there's loads and loads of things to think about. But I'm talking too much.
No.
Stephen, there must be some questions.
There were a couple here earlier. Let me see. I don't know. How much longer do you want to go for, by the way? I didn't even ask you at the beginning of this how long you had on your schedule today.
As long as you like. I cleared the morning, but it's up to you, Stephen, as well. You've got a life,
Let's see. So Mark had asked, how do you decide when to use charcoal or a graphite?
That's a good question. So I only use graphite if I'm on. Well, I say this is it's not true because I don't draw on a train. I get train sick. So, but if I'm outdoors, then graphite's perfect. But it has to be a particular graphite, and it has to be a woodless one, and it has to be. I think they sell them as 9B, and it might be Derwent, because I don't believe in pencil boxes with 2H, 3B, 4B, and all that. Your mind gets off the game again because you're reaching for what grade is this pencil? How dark will this get me? So with me, it's the 9B woodless. And then I have to use the pressure of my hand to get darks and lights, or lots of layers to get darks and lights. And then it becomes like charcoal again. So for me, it has to be one pencil, and it has to be the darkest pencil. And the reason I like graphite is it goes on dry paper and it doesn't make a mess.
I see.
But it has to have that darkness. If it hasn't got that darkness, if I feel I have to scribe into the paper, then I have lost all of my gestural skills. And you remember when you were a kid and you used to make a hole in the paper?
Yeah.
Because you didn't understand that this pencil can only go so dark.
Yeah, it cannot go darker.
Yeah. So that's it. So graphite when you're out and about, charcoal when you've got your little studio set up. And you don't need this big hobbit's cave that I've got here. I was talking about this yesterday on my podcast on my channel as well. And it was basically about when I was a kid, all I needed was a bunch of comics and a quiet place and a sketch pad. And I would find a rooftop. I would go to a rooftop because back then, basically if you came home alive, it was a surprise. We just went out and climbed roofs, and there was a war going on at the same time. I remember being trapped on a roof once because there was gunfire for so long.
Goodness.
And my mum says, "What's taking?" I says, "I was trapped on the roof. Did you not hear that firefight?"
And how did she respond to this?
I can't remember. I just remember that she sent me up to the shop once through a riot. There was a riot on the top of a real riot where they got the paint cannons.
Yeah.
Let's go up to Freddy Fuss goes, "See, this is a strange thing. It becomes normal."
His parents, man.
Yeah, it becomes normal because Freddie Fusco had a shop at the top of our street. And he didn't close the shop because of a riot, because he would have to close it every day. He would have to close it every day. And so she says, "Go and get some bread from Freddie Fusco." I says, "Mom, there's a riot." She says, "They know that you're not part of the riot."
Yeah, you can go around. It'll be fine.
There was no going around. It was straight up through the riot. So I walked through the riot with purpose like that. And sure enough, the soldiers didn't hit me with any rubber bullets. And the paint, but I did get a bit of pink paint on me.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
not,
so
not
now,
rubber bullets, though.
yeah, and then I've got a loaf of bread, and I've got pink on me, so now I'm a target. Because what they do is they spray the rioters, and then they pick them up later because they've got pink
this
on
makes
them.
sense. Yeah, because
You were definitely in the riot. You got pink on you. And
did you have to get some paint off of the bread?
I had to climb through hedges and come home. My mom says, "Why did it take you so long?" I says, "Well, I've got this on me, and I had to get through the hedges, so you wouldn't have to bail me out of jail."
Wow.
Well, what a weird thing. What a weird
it's humanity, man.
Yeah, I think we come back to the humanity. That's good. But yeah, you got to take it back to that. Even in those trying circumstances, I could find a little rooftop and have a sketch pad and grow this thing. And so it was a passport out of that situation. If I hadn't got those very simple tools, I couldn't be sitting in this hobbit's cave now. Who would have known what were the chances? But art made that happen. So art is a magical thing. And that's what this course is a magical thing based on a magical idea of just basically taking your mind and putting it on paper. And how that took me out of that situation is astonishing, really, when you think about it. What skills has this guy got? He can dig a road. He can do that. He can build. You've seen that. What else can he do? He can make these funny marks on paper. Well, that sounds like something that might take you somewhere. And
I'll give him money for that.
Yeah, it took me all over the world. And here we are. Here I am in Australia talking to Stephen in San Diego.
Yeah.
Look at that. And this artists are blown to the four winds.
It's true.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Are you from San Diego, Stephen?
No, I am born in California, but spent most of my time growing up in Arizona.
Arizona, what a wonderful place!
It's very good to be in for a few months towards the latter half of the year. The rest of the time, it is hell on earth. It is spicy land, Patrick. No one can live there.
I see. Yeah, I know people, and I remember a friend from Texas said it's hotter than two kittens fighting in a sock, and that just described everything. I went, "Oh, that's too hot."
They're not wrong. It's a terrible place. I moved as far as I could to get away. I went to all of the coldest places I could, but unfortunately, love brought me back this way.
Love always brings you back. That's why I'm here.
It's true.
There's some things, we're like flotsam and jetsam. You're floating around the ocean there. Things are going great. You go, yeah, and boom, you're married.
Yeah.
Didn't see that happening. So you can see lots of stuff, but you don't see that. That's left field.
Life happens to you.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes but the art is always there.
Indeed.
The art, that's constant.
You might as well do it well.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Croak here in the chat was asking, how do you deal with hair in this course?
How do I deal with? Yes.
Yeah. Do you approach talking about hair at all?
I do. I talk about everything. You've heard me. I can't stop. I can't stop talking. Let me think about hair. Yeah. You can see that I make hair special all the time. It has to be, first of all, I think for a prince. Can we show this?
I'm okay with this one
Yeah.
personally. If
Well,
anything happens,
you guys sent it to me, so I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
it's
this has got to be okay to be on there.
yeah. Well, you can see what I do with hair. When it comes to your princess, get it high in the back. Is one of my
Mm,
big tips. Get it high in the back, and you've got regalness. And when you're doing hair, think about the forehead as well. So we want a big frontalis for a princess, and that's why I'm not wedded to proportions. Because if I didn't have that freedom, then her forehead wouldn't have the regal charm it has now. Because I have the freedom to change that proportion. So don't be wedded to, a Riley method is great, but I think that even not think so much of Riley, but because I didn't know that method. That method was unknown to me throughout my entire career. I've only heard of it recently. And a strange thing was a student said to me once, "So you like the Riley method?" And I says, "Who's Riley?" So the thing is that basically the head is a structure and every artist works out that structure and it's going to look similar because heads are the same. So he thought I knew this method, but I did know the Loomis method. But I think even Loomis was going, here's a method. Now vary it off. Do what you like with it. It's just a parameter. And that's what I think all the time. As far as hair, let me see if I can find a little bit. There's me working with a little bit of John Buscema there.
mm,
And I'm not copying John Buscema. I basically have his books around me and going, oh, this is how he did eyes. And then I just riff off of that. Because if I just copied it, it would just be too stiff. So, and there, I think I was talking with you and Stan came in, I was drawing this little Frankenstein. So every once in a while, just have a bit of fun. Just doing anything, just getting
mhm,
that pencil moving. So if you've just sharpened your pencil and it's too sharp and it's not making the lines you like, then just what I do all the time is in between strokes, I'll turn the pencil and draw again. It becomes an automatic thing and you sharpen your pencil to the perfect lead. And while I'm doing that, I draw. And so as I draw this little doodle here, that pencil becomes a better pencil for my hand. It becomes
mm.
honed to my hand. So I do that too. Little scribbles. Trying to find, I was showing a bit of John
I like
Buscema.
these. Yeah,
Oh, this is
these.
John Buscema. This is
Yeah,
my,
the shape language is very definitely his.
oh, he's fantastic. He's
Yeah,
fantastic. So I do that. I go in and get a
nice.
bit of John Buscema vibe going on. But you can see how I treat hair all the time. If you're getting a little bit of the drawing's feeling a bit stiff, just get straight into the hair and flash it around.
Mm,
Remember, hair has got a life of its own,
mhm,
and let it frame the face. And maybe it might even tell you what to do with the face next. So for me, hair is a way to break out of the structure if it gets too stiff, and then come back in, and your hand will have had some of that life that you brought into it from the hair, because your hand remembers. Your hand remembers where it's just been, and if it's in structure world too long, you very quickly get into structure hell, where everything you do is structural. The hair,
mhm.
everything. So that's why I believe in gestural structure, so that you're never stuck in one camp. You've got that flow all the way through.
Yeah. I think
So
it's important to mix them. Like you said, it lets you reduce that overhead mental math that you don't want to really spend your time in. You can get stuck in so easily,
yeah,
but you still have those underpinnings that let you make something that has real form and structure and like real reality to it.
yeah, absolutely. There's so many things we could talk about. I mean, this, like I say, in the course, you're gonna have a million ideas.
Hmm.
But even within the hair, for instance, look how I put a hard edge on it. So when you break a rule, you get something special. And I put a hard edge on that hair and a thick line to it too. But it really made the difference. It really became an energetic thing. So yeah, I talk about hair all the time. And a mustache can just change. We know it in real life. You got a guy and he seems like a tame guy, and then he grows a mustache and beard, and you go, boy, he's tough.
Yeah,
It's just hair,
it's
you know.
it's just facial hair is just makeup for dudes.
It's just makeup for dudes. But you can see what I mean. Look at that magnificent uh, line you've got going on there. I don't know if you have to get wax for it or what. I remember watching a comedy movie once, and he says you can't afford that mustache. Because it would have to come with a brand wax and everything. You'd have to,
Absolutely. For
you'd have
for this guys.
yeah, you'd have to tone it and everything. Unfortunately, I'm not in the camp that can grow anything worth showing, so I'm out. I'm out of the
You
game.
you were given so much more, Patrick. Don't you worry. You didn't need to have facial hair. You've got plenty.
Yeah, I would love that mustache. I tell you, I would rock that mustache all over town. I would tweeze it as I
Just
thought.
like all the time.
Yeah,
Uh,
all the time. I would tweeze that out. But can I afford it? That's going to take a lot of wax.
it's too much upkeep. Uh, I guess Patrick, what is it you think you would want to have people leave with, knowing about this brand new potion filled wizardry lesson or
I would
wizardry course?
say, I would say that you're going to enjoy it. And my big ethos is enjoy the process.
Mm,
And I have had a very long career enjoying every mark I make. And I think that's the secret to longevity, but also to loving what you do forever. Because if it ever is a chore, then it's not worth doing. For me, I don't think that's art. I think art should be a beautiful thing. Even if it's complex like this, I enjoy every single line in this. And what got me there was that mileage. And look at the hair as well. Look at all this hair that we were talking about there. How do I deal with hair? With wild abandon. But it also has a structure to it. So as you see me draw, I often draw the head with a line going in the direction of where a head widens out. And that way you can start to build a hairstyle on it because the hair is going to fit around the head. So once you know that basic shape of a head, you can shape a hairstyle around it and really get into design. So basically, you're going to learn how to design. You're going to learn how to break away from the constraints of academia and draw the way you wanted to when you started drawing, which you get that love back that when you're a child or a teenager, and then something happened in your 20s and it all got dead serious. And then you started to lose your mind and go, I'm never going to get this. Basically, break that cycle of this is tough. I don't know if I can get it. It's not tough. It's only tough when you have that mindset. So simple, 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 simple all the way through. And now you're drawing stress free. So basically, you're going to get a stress free drawing experience that it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life so that you don't end up with pink paint walking through, climbing through hedges. You're going to have something beautiful to get you through everything that you experience in life. It's just wonderful. I can't live without art. It has to be there. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to get art for life that you'll enjoy for life. That's what this course is about. Thanks for nailing it down, Stephen.
Oh,
That's what
please,
I need to think about that.
please. No, I think that's getting to talk to you about any of the courses or any art concepts is always a massive joy. I think it's something that you speak well about because you spent your time making art, and it's wonderful that you got to actually go into a path where you share with other people what you've kind of codified in your time.
Oh,
It's a
no,
joy
you're a wordsmith, Stephen. I do enjoy your words. I do like
because I use codified.
codified knots. That's the word. That's you pulled that out beautifully there.
But yeah, thank you so much. I think just in case anyone did forget that we mentioned it earlier, the course is 20% off right now. That's Patrick has many courses that you'll see in that link that's in the description here on screen right now in the chat. It's up to you if you want to try any of those particular courses, but this one right now is 20% off. That's the fantasy figure drawing wizardry course. It's really freaking good. If you haven't taken any of Patrick's other courses ever before, start with this one. And if you did any of his others that he's had on with us before, go and get this one too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Stephen, because I nearly forgot. To end the podcast, what I thought we could do is show the other course that this was built before. So
Sure.
I did one course and then built this in retrospect to bridge that gap. And it was, this will lead you to fantasy female figures. So if all of that is in service of something, it's in service of the next step, which is, let's see, is there a world of fantasy before this? Let me have a look. There is. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Is that 8? Yeah, that's 8 and 9. So the fantasy female course is also on Proko as well. And basically, right, you've got all these wizardry skills. And what do we do with them next? Well, that's when you're really, I think I'm going to do a sorcery course.
Oh,
Then you become the sorcerer. So basically, there'll be a course after this, I'm sure. I'll just have to be prompted. People will just have to prompt me to do it. But basically, the skills you've learned in wizardry here will take you to this. And I'll just go through that quickly to show you that by this point now, the mechanics are practically invisible. They're almost invisible. And now you are drawing the way you wanted to draw when you were a kid, before you lost the will to commit to a life of art because it seemed so hard. And So now we're back to that point where it's not hard. Look at those beautiful lines. Look there. If I may say, you know what I
I
mean?
think, yeah, no, I agree with you. It's okay.
Yeah. And so that is what I love. And then I'll put a little bit of anatomy in it. You know, there's the brachioradialis going in as one big piece, right?
Mhm.
And there's the epicondyle right there. So they're just pieces now. And you can see clearly that anyone that knows from my courses, there's your scapula with a little bit of teres major curve on the end of it, right?
I like
And
that
of
the
course,
arrow came in as you said it.
yeah, and I'm voicing this all the way through as with every course I speak my thoughts. So I do little starts. Look, that's a start. See that? That's a preliminary drawing, and I start again. Many starts, because that's going to be a finished drawing. Because a lot of students say, for a finished drawing, how do you begin it? Well, you begin it with a start. Don't be frightened to do it twice, like that. And then you've got all the muscle memory from that initial start here to get in there again with more confidence. And I will render, because one of the questions last time was, but are we going to see any render? It's all in this part here. There's my beautiful model. I have to call out Alana Briegelman. I couldn't do this without her. She was so brilliant. She's really been part of what I do, as a fellow artist in there. But see how I faded back? Just enjoying that process over and over and getting those lovely fade. Don't worry about hands. They only start to look right when you finesse them. See that?
That's fair.
So start them simple. Start them as little sticks. See how they look terrible? Never worry about a hand, because that's when you get into render, you can start to fix those hands. So basically these are long process drawings. If anyone wanted to get into render, then this would be the course. It would go in here, and you can see me working with hair here. Look how beautiful that's becoming now. So this is basically me finishing in my style, finishing a drawing in my style. It's all about edges. It's all about what's a soft edge, what's a hard line, how to draw metal. See, I don't clothe my models. I want the ornamentation to fit on perfectly, like that. So you learn to draw, you learn to extrapolate, and you never have to fear again. Look, it just gets more and more beautiful. Where when you're just starting out, the drawing just gets worse and worse. That's what happens with drawings, because you're off the rails. You're trying to get out of trouble with render. So you've got to know what's underneath. Look how confident that toe went in, for instance. That's from the wizardry part of Tom. So the sorcery is starting to happen here, because the wizardry is underneath. The apprenticeship is being taken. The apprenticeship is never finished. The apprenticeship is never finished. We're always learning. But the apprenticeship days are behind me, and now I'm drawing with great love and just fun, just having fun forever as a fantasy artist. So that's what's happening there in fantasy female figures. So the apprentice to wizard, fantasy female figures go hand in hand. They're both on Proko right now. There you go.
I think it was good. I think I was missing bringing up what the later goal, the later half of things was. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember. We said at the start. Now, what do I always forget? And one of the things I always forget is there's a voiceover to this. People see me talking, their silent arrows. There's a voiceover all the way through it. So basically, yeah, if you want to be a painter, you want to be an artist, or just draw for the rest of your life, that's enough. But I'm a painter, so for me, this is invaluable to get in here. So if you like my drawings and my paintings for their fluidity in life, it's what's underneath that counts. And to be able to, like I say, yesterday, Rachel, one of my co-presenters on my channel, one of the Virginians, says, what's your favorite muscle? It's the long head of the tricep. There it is there. Because an arm can be a pipe very easily. But once you have favorite muscles, look how it just bites into that and then comes back out again. So knowing how flesh behaves as well, very important, and comes down to that ulna. That's my favorite muscle, because it's one of those muscles that if you don't know it, you're Mr. Pipe Arm for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You're Mrs. and Mr. Pipe Arm. Because it's essential. And it's essential to be high, and then over here is low. High and low. There's a million things in the course. There's a million things that will take you to this point. There we go. There you go.
I think it's good. This is important.
Yeah.
The small details make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. if there's any last questions, I'll take them. And like I say, Steve, I'm happy to hang around as long as you want to as well.
I think this is perfect. This is pretty much the length of a stream that I think that we found works best to kind of like retain people through throughout the thing. But and honestly, there weren't really any other questions in here. I mean, there are some certainly, but nothing that wasn't something that we haven't already really covered here in one form or another. I want to remind people that course 20% off. Go get it. It's great. If you guys want to see more things from Patrick and you don't necessarily have some money right now to buy a course, you can follow Patrick Jones on the internet. Patrick Jones can be found on most social media. He posts fantastic pieces of information. He'll post entire podcasts there every once in a while. I believe you were doing that for a little bit, right?
Yeah. The Art Agents. It's on my channel. Patrick, what is my channel? Patrick J.
I think it's Patrick J. Jones.
Yeah, that'll find it.
We've posted it. If anyone know where his stuff is on YouTube, we've posted it in our community tab several times for you guys to be able to go follow, because it's a fantastic channel. Yeah, there's no part of there where you're not doing A+ art content.
Yeah. The Art Agents is basically to help people get to where I am. I had talked about being on that roof. The Art Agents is about that. It's about how do you take this thing and make something of it. And so we invite guests on all the time that have done that. Like Stan, we're still waiting for Stan. I'm going to ask him.
Okay, I was like, has he not?
No, I haven't asked him.
You got to ask him.
We've had Steve Houston on. We've had Michael Hampton on. We've had Iris Comfort. We've had so many great fantasy artists on there and educators.
You had oh my God, Ben Eblin was on.
Ben Eblin's been on there, yeah. We celebrated the 10th anniversary, which is the 10th month. It's not years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if that's been 10 years, Patrick.
I know, but it sounded great, didn't it? The 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
So if you want to check that out, it's always great because you can get the ask questions all the way through it. And it's a really nice morning for me to sit with the Virginians, my two students, now working with Proko on critiques. So a lot of Proko students will know Rachel and Melody. So it's a great hang on, as has been this as well, Stephen. I really appreciate you inviting me on. And I'm here anytime you want to call me back.
I mean, I'll call you anytime. I'll call you
anytime.
Like Tuesday, whenever.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Tuesday's good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure that we'll get to do this again. I think that we're doing a lot more live streams just in general. We've got one coming up with another instructor here next week. I can't remember.
Nice segue.
I can't remember offhand, but if you guys subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll find out plenty. You'll get reminded and told about it.
I'm intrigued. I think it's better than remembering because I really want to know who that is now.
Oh man, let me see. Brent Eviston was who it is.
Okay. I'm not aware of this, Brett. What does he do?
He is a very similar artist, I think, to you.
Really?
Yeah, he is of a similar ilk to you in many ways. I think to the layman, he would appear this way. To either of you and to a person who's deep in art, I think you would see that there are some pretty massive differences. I think he's much more rigid in the way that he approaches something. But everyone has a different way that they like to approach something.
Yeah. And they're all valuable as well. Yeah, I like to say I don't want to fall out of the world of it's just for me, Frazetta, Al Williamson, and Roy Krinkle. I want to see who's new, and it blows my mind sometimes when I see a new artist on Instagram or something. I go, who's this person? What's they doing? You know what I mean? So I want to know who these new guys are, so I can keep in touch with just keep the liveliness going.
Absolutely.
You know me, I love art. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's important to know your contemporaries.
Yeah, I just want to see art forever. I don't want people to be scared of the AI. We've been frightened before. There's art and there's everything else, and art will always be valuable.
Absolutely.
People will, in fact, they might even reel more against AI and go, it's AI. There's no soul in it. There can be. Some people take it to another level, but for me, never worry about it. I mean, never throw your drawing tools away because of AI.
Yeah,
absolutely. You'll need them more and more. And way back when, I remember when computers come on, people said, we're doomed. Can you believe that? Photoshop. We're done Photoshop. And a friend of mine says, we're going to be even more, an optimist. He says, we're going to be even more valuable. And he was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
He was absolutely right. When I go to a convention and hang those big oil paintings, I held on to those skills while other people let them drop. And now it's even more valuable because there's less people doing it. That's even more valuable.
That's the thing. So you mentioned comic books earlier. I think this is actually like the most apt, like one of the most apt things to compare it to. The whole reason that old comic books, like the first issue of Superman or whatever, is worth so much money, or any comic book for that matter, is because the people who bought them at the time, that they would just took them for granted and everything, and they threw them away because they were like, 2 cents, 5 cents to buy or whatever. All of these got tossed away. The scarcity was the thing that made it valuable. If everyone else stops doing traditional art or making art even digitally or anything like that, if you're still doing it, it means that much more. Don't stop making art. Share your voice, share your vision.
Great end to it, Stephen. Fantastic. I agree.
Again, if anybody wants to follow Patrick, and you should, go find him online. Do it. Do it. Do it. Have a good day, everybody.
Now, do you pull the plug? I'm always worried about the plug being pulled.
Oh, I do it here, but we'll still be here together.
Oh, will we? Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
but
don't worry.
That's why I was anxious. I go, Stephen's going to pull the plug, and I'm just going to be mid-sentence. It's been